Hey, good morning and welcome to our Indoor Environment Assessors. It's great to have you with us for this webinar as we make the transition from NABERS Rate to Perform. My name's Carl Welsh. I'm acting sector lead for the Indoor Environment tool in the market development team here at NABERS. We've been really looking forward to this transition for quite a while now, and I hope you have been as well. So firstly, thanks to our assessor community for your patience with the members and rate platform. And thanks for your feedback on the tool and platform over the years. We really appreciate having such an engaged cohort of assessors that we can come to for consultation, opinions, and advice. Finally, a huge thank you to those of you who have been part of the recent design and testing of this tool that we're launching very soon. Today's session is about supporting you through the transition to the new platform, what will change in your workflow, and what you need to do next. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm joining from today and pay my respects to elders past and present. I also extend that respect to any Torres Strait Islander or Aboriginal people joining us on the line today. I'm joining the call from my home in Wongal country, which is part of the Eora Nation. I'm lucky enough occasionally to enjoy a commute from my home in the inner west of Sydney to our office in Parramatta along the Parramatta River, a river that sustained the Wongal and Gadigal people for centuries, long before it shaped the city that we know today. So a bit of housekeeping before we dive into the content. This session is being recorded and will be made available to everyone in the coming days. Microphones are muted by default, and we'll hold questions off until the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Though feel free to drop any questions that you have into the Q&A panel as we go, and my colleagues Ron, Bell or Gareth might be able to answer them as we go. So if we don't get to answering a question in the chat or in the Q&A session, we have your email details and we'll contact you with an answer shortly after the webinar. So this call has the option of closed captions. So if you'd like subtitles in real time, click on the three dots, the language and speech, and you can turn on those captions. The focus today is really on what this transition means for you in practice. We'll start with a bit of context, including why we're making the change and what's in scope for the change. Then we'll move into a demonstration of the new platform by Gareth from our design team, so you can see how it works. After that, we'll step through the key changes for assessors. Then Belle from our rules team will walk through a summary of updates to the rules. We'll cover key dates and any actions that you need to do next, and then we'll leave time at the end for some questions. But first, I'd like to hand over to Ron Polito. He's currently acting head of market development team for a couple of words. Over to you, Ron.
Thanks, Carl, and I will keep it very short. Really, we all know how much all of you loved NABERS Rate, but you're definitely going to love the new NABERS Perform platform much better. And those of you who have done other ratings like energy already know what it's like. You are lucky because you get to experience the joy again. But for those who will be using Perform for the first time, it's pretty much just designed to make it much simpler and easier for you to lodge and see the information, whether you're a customer or your assessor. We will be going live on the 20th of July, and that's when you need to submit all of those ratings onto Perform. But Carl and the team, they'll walk you through all the details very, very soon. Ultimately, we're here to help after the webinar. If you run into any problems or if you've got any feedback, feel free to reach out. But we're very excited and hope that it is a good experience for you, lots to learn and lots for you to know. Thanks, Carl.
Great. Thanks, Ron. So we'll jump into a bit of context of this update. So a few years ago, NABERS kicked off a major data transformation project. We migrated all rating calculations and rating data into Salesforce. This is a platform that's widely supported and much better for queries, reporting, and integration. And it's on this Salesforce platform that we built our new rating platform, NABERS Perform. At the time, we were building some new rating tools, so these were built straight into Perform. Then we moved on to transitioning existing tools from the members platform. So transitioning the Office's energy and water tool was our largest project so far, and you can watch a recording of the launch webinar that we did at the time on our YouTube channel. And we've been progressively moving our remaining tools onto the Perform platform since then, and now it's the Indoor Environment tool making that transition. The Perform platform also gives us much better connectivity to the rating engines, allowing integration with our online calculators, and more recently, the NABERS API. So if you'd like to find out more about the API and how it can help you access NABERS data, please get in touch with myself directly. Looking at the accreditation status of our indoor environment assessors, I see that a good proportion of our currently active indoor environment assessors are also accredited in energy and water. So many of you would be familiar with the Perform platform already, and some of you not familiar. But the great thing about this build is that our design team have applied best practice design to this platform. So with the demonstration from Gareth today, I'm confident that all indoor environment assessors will be able to make the transition smoothly. So there'll be no further training required by yourselves to make this transition. Now, to give you an idea of what's changing and what isn't changing, I've started a diagram here with the core elements of the indoor environment tool. So we've got the platform, the algorithm, and the annual temperature data calculator central to the tool. The big change and the reason for this webinar is, of course, the change in platform from members to Perform. The tool itself, the algorithm, the parameters and the components are staying the same as they were in rate. So updates to our algorithms or adding parameters is a costly exercise, and we're always looking for funding to make an update such as this. The annual temperature data calculator will remain. It will be required to get that BMS data into the platform, and there'll be just a minor change on that calculator, which I'll go through later. Then supporting these core elements, we have our rules. In September last year, we moved from version 2 of the rules to version 3. And now to coincide with this release, we're making a few changes and will issue version 3.1 close to the launch date. And Belle from our rules team will go through a summary of the changes in both updates. Also in the indoor environment ecosystem, we have our level 1 audits. These will remain the same. As Gareth will demonstrate, some of the design improvements and additional fields should provide some time savings during the level 1 process. So that should be a benefit there for everybody. The level 2 audit process will remain the same. That's all handled within Perform, and if your rating is selected for a level 2 audit, you'll receive guidance on how this works. The assessor accreditation process remains unchanged, and the training course and exam will also remain the same, although they'll have some cosmetic changes to align with the platform and the new version of the rules. As I mentioned, the transition to Perform does not require any formal training, so this demonstration in the webinar should be plenty to equip you for the transition. So admin functions, we see some slight changes, but I'll speak about those later. So that's the breakdown of what's changing and what's staying the same. The platform change being the most significant. So with that, let's hand over to Gareth from our design team to walk us through the indoor environment tool on the Perform platform. Over to you, Gareth.
Thanks, Carl. Hi, everyone. I'm Gareth, a UX designer here at NABERS. I joined the team back in November, and I'm really excited to do a platform walkthrough with you today and showcase the new indoor environment rating tool in NABERS Perform, which the team, along with your support, have been working super hard on. But before I start, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the assessors. I think we had around 11 who've contributed at various stages throughout the design process with our team. I know some of you gave up hours of your time getting involved in answering questions, doing interviews and platform tests, and it's had a really big impact and helped inform what you'll see today. And we're looking forward to hearing more feedback from you once you actually start using it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk through the platform, the indoor environment rating experience end to end, and call out some of the key improvements as we go. And broadly, what we've tried to do in line with our NABERS Perform goals is to make it as easy as possible for ratings to be accurate, to make the process more meaningful, and make the rating process more smoother, faster, and more user-friendly. So I'll show you how those outcomes hopefully come through in the platform. So when you log on into NABERS Perform, this is the homepage that you'll see. And one of the key changes here is that everything you used to do across members and rate for indoor environment is now in one place. When you want to start a rating, you can use the button here in the center, create a rating. And if I scroll down you'll see the assessor templates available for each of the indoor environment scopes. So base building, whole building, and tenancy. And these are designed to support your data collection in the field. And once you've collected your data, you can simply copy and paste it directly into Perform. And I'll show you an example of how that works a little bit later on. The assessor template is something that's had really good feedback from assessors in other rating tools so far. Also on this page, we have access to the rules, evidence templates, and there's also a help page if you want to understand more about NABERS Perform. But I'll jump straight into the rating so we can get into the workflow. I've already started a draft rating for the purposes of our walkthrough today. So I can either find this in ratings at the top or in this section, ratings in progress. And the rating that I'm looking for is this one here. I'm going to open that up. And then once you're inside the rating, on the left-hand side, you can see all the pages included, along with which pages are complete in green. The half ring in orange shows you which pages need to be reviewed, and the grey ring shows you where sections of information are missing. If you've used Perform for other ratings before, this will feel familiar in terms of the structure and the navigation. The key difference here, though, is instead of the metering and consumption pages, we have the parameter pages. So for base building, scope covering thermal services, air quality, and acoustics, the overall flow follows the same logic. So you set up the rating, input your data, review everything, and then calculate the rating, the result, and lodge. And as you move between the pages, your work is saved automatically. With autosave, you can see up here, running in the background, but you can also select save at the bottom right here. So we're on the rating details page. So for this rating, you can see that I've chosen an indoor environment rating and that I've selected it's going to be base building. Underneath, if you have an agreement to rate in place, you can select this and add in the agreement to rate number. And then underneath, in rating resources, here is where you can download and use the annual temperature data calculator. And Carl's going to do a small update on this later on in the webinar. And then at the bottom of the page, we have your level 1 auditor messages. So this is where you can send our level 1 auditors a specific or more general message about your rating. And these messages all live in Perform and are visible on every page. As I progress to the next page, the rating period, nothing is really different about this page. You just enter the start date and Perform does the rest. And indoor environment ratings are using that 12-month rating period. Moving through to the premises page. So we already have an address entered, but what you would do is use a street number and street name to find your premises. If you're having trouble when you're doing this, you'll have tooltips visible before you save, which give you tips on how to find the address you're looking for. And if you still have other issues and you still can't find it, just contact NABERS and we'll help you to find the right address. And something useful here is that once you have used the premises in NABERS Perform before, it will come up as an option to select to save time. Powering on to the contacts page. So you can enter in your customer details at the top. You can search our database for a customer or manually add them in. Underneath, you can enter in the customer contact, select their role, and then send them an invite. They'll have access to view the rating, but they won't be able to edit or confirm that what they want to lodge here. I'll show you where that is when I get to the certification process page and how that works. Underneath, we have additional assessor contacts where you can add in another assessor, but just worth noting here that any secondary assessor contact that you add in will need to be accredited for indoor environment. So this page has been renamed from Building Details in Rate to Sampling Setup, which better reflects what assessors are actually doing here. So on your second IE rating or indoor environment rating in Perform for a building, pre-fill will be available, which means that you can use the same building data from the previous rating to help you with this rating and save a bit of time if those building details are still the same. And then in terms of sampling requirements underneath, we've retained the way minimum samples are calculated based on floor area and how many floors are occupied. And one of the most important things to understand on this page is that the information that's entered here drives how the tables are structured on the subsequent parameter pages of thermal services, air quality, and acoustics. So if I add or change a row to this table, that will more automatically update in the tables on the parameter pages. And then for this table, you can also copy and paste the details from the assessor template directly into this table. A couple of other key improvements on this page. So you might notice that we've added in a floor location column, and the reason why we did this is because it helps explain why that floor was selected as a sampling location and links back to the rules and makes things much clearer during audit. So from an assessor perspective, that can reduce a lot of back and forth with level 1 auditors and questions as to why that floor was selected. Additionally, we've also removed the cap on the number of samples and floors that you can enter. Underneath, we have the sample input fields. If the number of sampling locations falls below the minimum required number, which is provided up above, then Perform will notify you of that by showing you an error message. As we move through into the first of the parameter pages, thermal services, and just generally just to say with the parameter pages, we've tried to make sure the pages have a more consistent structure, clearer labeling, and better alignment with how assessors actually collect and work with the data. During research, our team noticed a few inconsistencies across rate with the terminology, and some assessors told us that some of it wasn't completely clear. So in Perform, we've addressed this by aligning calculation levels with clearly defined terminology, such as by using the terms component and parameter. So in thermal services, at the top, you've got this data summary table, which brings together the key values in one place, and you'll see how the component scores and the annual data for thermal services feed into the parameter result in bold at the bottom of the table, which then contributes to the overall result at the end of the rating, which you'll see on the review summary page. And we've done this to make it easier to follow how inputs contribute to the final result. In the column to the right, previous rating, this is where previous rating data would appear once the same type of rating has been completed in Perform, and it makes it easier to sense check your data and spot anything that doesn't look quite right. Underneath, we have a question around the ventilation, which we've just answered. The building is predominantly mechanically ventilated. And then underneath the annual temperature data, this is where you bring in your annual monitoring results, copying from the spreadsheet and adding in here. And then underneath in this section, you'll be asked to upload the annual temperature data calculator. Moving down to the spot measurement data table. There are a couple of key usability improvements here. So we've added a sample location column, which makes it easier to identify where samples were taken on the floor. And we've changed the ordering of the table so that all AM samples appear first, followed by PM samples. We've been told by assessors that this aligns more closely with how data is actually collected in practice and makes both the data entry and checking of it more efficient. Just to say here, we've also improved validations across the platform. So if a value is clearly unrealistic, the system will either flag it or prevent it from being entered. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to bring up my assessor template for base building. And I'm going to show you how I would copy in the spot measurement data. So within the template, you can see that I'm on the thermal services tab at the bottom. So I'm just going to make sure I've got the right columns in view, and then I'm going to select. data, and just scroll down to the bottom. Control C. I'm going to come back into perform. I'm going to click in the first column here and Control V. Oh, let's try that one again. Okay, I'm just going to double check. I think we've lost the lines in between this one and the table, so I'm just going to open my other one that had.
While Gareth is getting that data, I'll just remind everyone that we've got a Q&A panel there, so feel free to pop any questions into that panel. We can answer them as we go along in the webinar. So up the top you should see the chat and the Q&A buttons. If you go into the Q&A, you can pop a question in there if you like.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, what I think I'll do is I'll just come back to this page at the end, just give it a bit more time to do that. But I'll move on to the air quality page for the moment. Come back to it. So again, air quality follows the same overall structure. So with the data summary at the top, containing the component scores, followed by the parameter result at the bottom of the table. And the way the samples are grouped here is by the AM readings first, followed by plant rooms, and then followed by PM readings in that final plant room at the bottom. And then underneath, you'll see tweaks to the labeling across the page align more closely with the rules. An example here would be where carbon dioxide sample difference, which was used in rate, has been replaced by ventilation effectiveness standard compliance so that it matches the rules. Moving through to acoustics. So for acoustics, we've aligned the layer again with the other parameter pages, except for acoustic not having both AM and PM samples. The table now follows a vertical format compared to horizontal in rate. And we've also updated the labeling on this page to better align with the rules and industry terminology. So an example on this page would be where sound has been updated to ambient sound. And this is the last parameter page. And once you understand how one parameter page works, the others follow the same structure and are easy to navigate. Okay. Just going to come back to the assessor template and try this once more. Hoping this is going to work, fingers crossed. Worked this morning. Scroll down. We've just pasted that in. So unfortunately on this example, I haven't got the sample location descriptions that I tried to put in, but this is just one from a rating which I had open on my computer as well. So what you'll see is as I've pasted that in, it takes a little while to paste that data in, but once it is pasted in, you can see how the PPD values on the far right update as you've done that. And now this data is in, and what I just need to do, I can check it, or I can come down. Got a few values missing there, so I'm just going to add in a couple more. You can see how Perform has flagged that those values are missing. Give that one more try. Okay, just while that's updated, what I can now do is save. And you can see that once I save, the green tick now appears on the left, which means that thermal services has been completed. So what I'm going to do is move on to the review summary page. Now we've solved the problem. Probably quite good for you to see how the errors pop up to alert me that certain fields are missing. Move on to the review summary page, and because I can see all the ticks are done, what I'm going to do is calculate my rating. And then on this page is where everything comes together. I've checked the data, I've calculated the rating, and now I can see what my rating result is underneath. So if we look at the indoor environment rating results, we have the star rating, the rating progress metric, and then the overall result. So the rating progress metric gives you that more granular result when the rating sits in between our half star or full star decimal rating. And then you might also notice that the term overall result has replaced overall score in rate in line with the rules. And then if there was to be a previous rating here, you would see another column to the right of current rating, which would display the previous rating, as well as indicators as to where the values had changed. Below the results, you can see we've got a unweighted parameter table, which is showing how each parameter is performing individually. And if I hover over these, you can see it provides me with specific percentages. And then on the right, we've got a table showing how much each weighted parameter contributes to the overall rating. So we've had feedback that this is useful for assessors when explaining to clients about their results. So as we scroll down further into the rating input section, starting with the general details and then flowing into the parameter results. One key improvement here is that we have brought in the parameter graphs onto this page from the parameter pages. So if I just expand this section, thermal services graphs, you can see how they appear underneath. And this is based on feedback from assessors that they're more commonly used at the end of the process, especially when talking through results with clients. So it makes things much more convenient having them all in one place. And you can see you can view these graphs side by side, which again is something which assessors told us would be useful. In rate previously, you could just open them up individually. If you don't want to use the graphs, that's absolutely fine. You can just close down this expandable section. Okay, so from here, you move into the certification process page and where you lodge the rating. It should be quite familiar, I think, to those using Perform already. If there is a rating that can be renewed or replaced, that can be selected at the top. And then underneath, you can review and update how names will appear on the certificate, delivery of the rating certificate and report, manage whether the customer would like the rating to be public listed, check fees and invoicing details underneath, and add in your company reference if you have one for the invoice. And then underneath this, in the customer authorization section, the one key difference is that the customer authorization needs to come in the form of an email. So for the moment, you'll need to upload the email from the customer that says, yes, I authorize the rating and I'm aware of the result, and then upload that here so the level 1 auditor can check, and then you'll be able to proceed with your lodgement. So once everything's complete, you're happy with the details, you've answered the questions in the assessor declaration, and you can lodge your rating. You can see it's being lodged. And then what I'll do is I'll just switch across to another rating where I can show you how those certificates and reports look. Okay, so you'll always be able to access the certificates and reports from the certification process page. After it has been certified, they will be emailed to you and the customer. But like I said, you can always come back here to look at them. So you can see we've got download certificate, download report. So if I download the certificate, and I'm going to open it up. So having a look at what's included, very similar to our other Perform certificates. So you'll see the type of rating and what star you've achieved, company details and the scope of the rating, organization name and premises name, and then the validity date. If I download the report, super excited to show you the NABERS rebranding of the Indoor Environment report to bring it more in line with other NABERS Perform reports. So on the first page, we have all of the customer and rating details as you'd expect. And additionally, in the middle section, as well as the star rating, we've also included the rating progress metric. Moving down to the parameter results and weighting section, you'll see that the graph is more in line with NABERS branding, and it has the review summary information we saw in NABERS Perform, including the graph showing the unweighted parameter results, and then the table showing how each parameter contributes to the overall result. And then we'll move into the individual parameter results, and you'll see inside the table we have each component score, how much that is weighted towards the parameter result, and then based on those, the parameter result at the bottom of the table. Underneath, we have the graphs you saw earlier with additional sentences to support your understanding of the numbers involved in those graphs. So the report, first of all, covers thermal services, then moves into air quality, then acoustics in the same order as the pages are structured in Perform that you saw. So that's a walkthrough of the new NABERS Perform Indoor Environment Rating Tool. I know we had a bit of a technical issue, but we're really happy to and really keen to hear your feedback, what's working well, and where we can continue to improve. And thanks again to everyone who contributed to the design and testing of this. It really has been a collaborative effort from NABERS and our assessors to co-design this together. And I'll hand back to you on that, Carl. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Gareth. Fantastic to see that demonstration. And I was fortunate to have been on this transition project from the start, and it was great to witness how our design team, Rachel, Monique, and Gareth, have engaged with our assessor community to really make this tool functional and it really looks good. So really looking forward to hearing of your experiences using the platform to our assessors, and yeah, looking forward to seeing the improvements that'll make to the process. So I'm just going to move on to a couple of additional items that that you might want to be aware of, and I'll start with the Perform login. So for those of you already using Perform, you'll continue to use your current login. And for the assessors new to Perform, your login details will be mailed to you on the release date. So and this is standard practice for new tools in Perform, as the tool won't be available for view before the launch date. We'll email out those login details on the date. Assessor templates, as Gareth mentioned, will be available to download from the platform. And again, as the tool won't be visible prior to the launch date, you'll probably want to get familiar with these templates. So we'll email them out to you pretty shortly. So I think we've wrapped up the templates, and we'll be able to get them out to you shortly so you can get familiar with them. And if you are listening to this webinar later on and you'd like one of the templates, please reach out to us through the NABERS mailbox. So invoicing, Perform now sends out invoices immediately upon lodgement, and that goes to your company's account team straight away. And you can put some details in there for purchase orders and the like. So no other changes to the invoicing process. And moving on to level 1 audit. So as I mentioned, we'll still obviously be doing level 1 audits to ensure the data is being lodged in alignment with the rules. So there's several improvements to the way that Perform captures and validates data, so such as those extra fields to capture your floor selection method. So this should reduce the need for some of the questions that that are asked in level 1 audits. So again, an improvement in efficiency there. So in the screenshot that you can see here, this is an example of correspondence between the assessor and auditor. So similar to the members platform where the auditor might ask some questions, and in here it's in a chat situation. The auditors might ask some questions. If more information or clarification is required, we'll return the rating to draft mode, and then you can provide that additional information. If the annual temperature data calculator needs to be resubmitted, that can be uploaded within the platform on the on that tab. So no longer need to email to us directly, and this was a bit of a pain point for everyone back in members. So the process for seeking approvals. Just a note there that if you, for example, want to take measurements on alternate floors and you're seeking approval for some other situation, we still need to go through our case management system for those approvals. So that's an email to the NABERS inbox that'll get assigned to one of the indoor environment technical officers. And we'll do that. We'll continue to do that approval process through the case management system, and not through the chat function within a rating. Back to our list of additional items, and the last one on the list there is the annual temperature data calculator. So we still do need to use the calculator to summarize the BMS data and calculate the compliance with ASHRAE 55. So there's just a larger volume of data there that that we can't be putting into Perform platform, and that spreadsheet does need the macros to do the calculations. So we've updated some of the instructions on the README tab. We've changed some of the wording just so it's specific to Perform, and we will issue that, that'll be available through the Perform platform, but also we will email that out prior to the release. One change with the spreadsheet is that the Perform platform does have tighter security protocols and does not accept spreadsheets in the XLSM format. They're spreadsheets that are carrying macros. So two ways of addressing this. We have added a button there that you can click, and that'll save it as an XLSS, which effectively removes the macros, or you can save that yourself. Just save as, select the file type as an XLSX and XLXS, sorry, and then upload that to Perform. Again, we'll email that out to you, and if you're listening to this webinar later on, just get in touch with us through the mailbox. So now let's hand over to Belle from our rules team to hear a summary of changes from version 2 to the current version. Belle.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Carl, and good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many of you joining us today. As Carl mentioned, my name is Belle. I'm from the NABERS Products and Standards team, and I've been working on updating the indoor environment rules for officers to version 3.1 over the last few months, implementing further improvements since the last version 3.0 that was released not too long ago in September last year. Similar to other rules updates, changes have been made and prioritized based on feedback we receive, as well as areas our technical team believes should be improved based on questions from assessors. I won't have time to go through all of the changes in detail. However, there are a few major changes which I'd like to highlight and point out. Firstly, we have fixed some inconsistencies in the current version regarding naming of terminology such as parameter and component. These were previously used interchangeably, but should now be a lot clearer in the new version. As you'd expect, we've revised the document to align with the transition from rate to the perform tool. So you'll find previous mentions of NABERS rate will now be referred to as the NABERS rating input form to align with our other rules. There have been some clarifications made for some of the wording throughout to help make the intent and understanding clearer and easier to understand. For example, you'll find that the previous mentions of indoor air quality have been updated to just air quality, as the word indoor was a bit redundant and didn't always align with the intended meaning. There are also changes such as new note boxes to help clarify some things. And finally, there have been some changes to the appendices, which I'll go through a bit more in my next slide. A detailed list of all changes made between this version and the previous version is given in the appendix as usual, so you can go through all of those in detail. And we're planning for the rules to be released a week prior to the perform release. You'll receive an email from us to notify you when this is available, and the version will come into effect when perform is released. So there is no transition required for the period for the ratings. So here are a few screenshots of the updates we've made to the appendices. As you might be aware, Appendix C previously had a table which included examples of the timing windows to collect samples, which have been mentioned throughout the rules. This has been removed as it was causing a bit of confusion, and it's now an example of a sample collection plan to align with the requirements that we set out in section 4.8. Then there's also two new appendices. There's Appendix H, which is an example of a validation report for BMS sensors, and the second demonstrates the hierarchy between overall result, parameters, and components. Note that both examples are intended to be used as a guidance for audit documentation. However, you're welcome to make your own custom version based on what we've provided. And that's everything regarding the rules. Short and sweet. If you have any questions for me, please post them in the Q&A panel, or you can reach out to us following the webinar. And I'll pass it back to you, Carl.
Amazing. Thanks, Belle. Thank you very much for that rundown. So I'm just going to move on to the key dates here. So let's look at how this transition should play out with the calendar. So on Friday, the 17th of July, if you could lodge the final indoor environment ratings on the members on the members platform. So lodgements right up until the end of Friday. If you get them in, they'll be audited, and certificates and reports will be issued in the existing design. Then on Monday morning, the 20th of July, all ratings will need to be lodged in Perform. So rate will not be available from Monday the 20th of July, and the new design reports and certificates will be issued for those ratings lodged after Monday the 20th of July. So they're really just the two key dates. It is a hard cutover between the two systems, yeah, so Monday, 20th of July, we're really looking forward to getting there. And also on that Monday, that's when the login details will be issued to the assessors who are not currently on the Perform platform. So we've run really close to time here, and we did have a couple of questions in the chat. We'll move on to that session, but we did manage to answer Madeline's question, and Ellie, I did wait a little bit until Gareth got to that picture of report. So we do have the rating progress metric on showing on the report. So that's great, and you can use that in your talking points with your with customers to show just how far, like, you might have to go to the next star rating. So with that, I'll just see if there's any other questions that might come in, or if we've got time for a quick question. I know that during some of the testing, it came up about, like, what some of the biggest differences that might be made by the design changes. Gareth, do you think you might be able to comment on what you think are the biggest changes in the design that would benefit our assessors?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I think that the biggest difference is really about clarity and efficiency. So what we've done is try to make the structure of the rating much more intuitive. So assessors can clearly see how individual measurements roll up into those component scores and then into parameter results, and then finally into the overall result. The hierarchy wasn't that transparent before, so we've streamlined that. So it kind of matches better how assessors work as well, with the new parameter pages being more focused and consistent. The data summary is at the top of the page, and the review summary clearly shows how the results are built up. And then the features like pre-fill, file uploads, and improving those validation rules reduce that manual effort for assessors when they're going through the rating tool. So I think overall, to sum that up, I think assessors should find it faster to input and check the data, easier to understand and explain the results, and smoother to get through to certification.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, thanks for that, Gareth. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thanks to everyone involved, and especially thanks to all of our assessors for your engagement in the process and for coming along on the journey with us. So, as I mentioned, we'll be emailing out some of these resources, and we look forward to seeing you on the Perform platform. So, thanks for your time today, and with that, I'll end the session. We'll see you in Perform.